Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Denville Board of Education work session meeting of November 8th. This meeting of the Denville Township Board of Education is being held in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act. Notice of this meeting was provided to the Daily Record and/or the Star Ledger of Morris County, has been delivered to the Township Clerk, and has been posted on the bulletin board of the Board of Education office and at each of the school districts, each of the school buildings in the district. And I should have started by saying Mrs. Wagner was called away at the last minute. She won't be here tonight, so I will be running the meeting. Roll call, please.
Would you like to say the Pledge of Allegiance first?
Yes, we can do that. Do the pledge? Even though it's out of order?
So let's do roll call.
Yeah.
Mr. Capello?
Here.
Mr. Cass?
Here.
Mr. Anderson?
Here.
Mr. Lure?
Present.
Mr. Kim?
Here.
Mrs. Gould?
Here.
Okay, we don't have a need for executive session, so we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay. We have a special presentation on November 22nd, which will be from Dr. Cullis. Tonight we will move on to the superintendent's comments, please.
Thank you. Executive Order 253, the vaccine testing mandate. We had our first week of testing last week. It all went well. All unvaccinated staff completed the testing. All were negative. We're working on getting the volunteers set up for this week. The projects, Lakeview roof, we're still working on the punch list. We should be closing that out shortly. The Riverview HVAC, the old units have been removed from the roof. We're working on the installation now. The gym has to be closed at Riverview in the main campus until we're expecting to reopen it on November 21st. The all-purpose room can be used during the school day, but not after school. So the aftercare has been moved across the street to the annex. District-wide COVID cases, we have 2 positive cases in the district. And the regional activity is still in the yellow indicator. Strategic planning. We're looking at November 14, 28, and December 12 of 2022 to start our strategic planning. The plan would be to hold a Board of Education meeting at 6 p.m. with the entire board, and then turn to a strategic planning session at 7 p.m. Just kind of like the way we did it the last year. That way all the board members could be in session during the meetings. So again, November 14, 28, and December 12. Once I get a contract from Mrs. Peterson, I will publicize this and we'll get moving on save the date kind of stuff. We also got some great news about Valley View. They were announced that they received an award called the Climate Action Project Schools of Excellence. This is something that's involved in over 140 countries. There's 250 international winners. So Valley View was one of 250 winners around the world in 140 countries. It deals with inspiring student-driven and project-based learning that deals with Climate Action Day. We joined to better understand how other countries and cultures are addressing the climate change. Valley View's registration detailed 2 specific areas of school-wide focus: the ongoing incorporation of climate change into our 6th through 8th grade science curriculum, and the tree planting project. This is from Mrs. Stiles, who's the lead in the green team, and she would also like to make sure we thank the rest of the green team, which is Ms. Olarte, Ms. Lyons, and Ms. Oliveira for their hard work, and also to the administration and the board. It seems like everywhere I turn with Ms. Stiles and that green team, we're receiving some type of award or doing something that I think seems pretty amazing. I did get a chance to go up and watch them, this project they had with students and staff members planting the new trees at the new field at Valley View. I'm not sure if you saw it, but there's about 7 new trees that were planted. I think they look great. They're like special trees that won't grow huge, but they look really nice. And it was really nice to see the students and staff working on the project together. She also incorporated some help from the local town green team. So it seemed like a big community effort. So it was another great job by Ms. Stiles and the team. And that's it for my comments.
Thank you, Steve, and thanks for the recognition for our staff. Does any board members have any questions of Dr. Forte?
Yeah, Dr. Forte. Thank you, Mr. Capello. November 14th, 28th, and December 12th, that's next year, 2022, right?
Yes, next year.
And so the 28th will be the Monday after Thanksgiving?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
We have board meetings on the 14th and the 12th. The only one we don't have a board meeting schedule is the 28th. But Ms. Peterson feels that 2 weeks in between each time is good. It's a little less would be a little too tight.
Thank you. Anyone?
By the way, this is not set in stone. If anybody has other suggestions about it, I'd be happy to hear it. I just tried to look at some dates that I thought might work. Give us some time, not start in September when things are hectic. Give us a little time to get the year going and then start working on the strategic planning.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Dr. Cullis can't be with us tonight, so let's move on to business administrators' comments, please.
No comments.
Okay, thank you. Okay, at this time, we're going to open up our first public discussion portion of the meeting for agenda items only. The purpose of Bylaw 0167, public participation in board meetings, is to recognize the value of public comment on educational issues and the importance of allowing members of the public to express themselves on school matters. In order to permit the fair and orderly expression of such comment, the participant must preface comments by an announcement of their name and place of residence. Statements made by a participant shall be limited to 3 minutes duration, and no participant may speak more than once on the same topic until all others who wish to speak on that topic have been heard. All statements, questions, or inquiries shall be directed to the board president. I'm opening up public comment at 7:37 p.m. Rick, is the microphone on full time? She'll push it, you'll push it.
Marietta Cohen, 2 Van Dorn Place. So in light of the new policy on the public being able to speak only on agenda items, will there be changes to the agenda to give some talking points? Because the agenda is pretty vague on concerns of the community, of parents, and so I'm just wondering if we're going to have a kind of a more expanded or detailed agenda to include various topics that we're allowed to speak on.
So generally not. The agenda is as detailed as it usually is, so you're not going to necessarily see more on the agenda. Generally, the second piece, the second public portion, is the portion where you can speak to any items germane to the district, and that's always been the case. We have tightened it up a bit in the last year because we have tried to keep our meetings moving, but generally that's always been the case, that agenda items are primarily at the beginning. It is up to the president. The president can decide to waive that. I've decided tonight not to do that, so we're going to hold anything that's not agenda related till the second public comment portion.
Understood. So just so we're clear, the second portion at the end of the meeting typically is when we can speak of any topic that we wish to, regardless whether it's on the agenda or not.
Yes, that's
Okay.
that's what I would call the free form section.
Got it.
Again, items germane to the district, but yes,
Right.
that's correct.
Thank you.
Okay, if anyone else would like to speak at this time, agenda items only at this point in the meeting? You'll need to press down the button.
Changed Donna Marie Szynski, 64 Pier Place, Denville. Under statute NJSA 10-4-12, shall be required to set aside a portion of every meeting of the Board of Education, the length of the portion to be determined by the Board of Education for public comment of any, I repeat, any issue, school district issue that a member of the public feels may be of concern to the residents of the municipality or school district. This is a law, it's not a mandate or an EO. That gives you wiggle room for exemptions. I request you table your agenda-only public comment section now. This is against the law, and we're constantly being reminded of laws, right? But they're actually mandates or executive orders. Sorry, I need to catch my breath because we just walked in. If you choose to respond, I formally request an opportunity to correct any misrepresentations without a seat, if that's possible. I personally wish to address the begging for volunteers, but discriminating against people
Ms.
for
Szynski,
vaccinations has.
I'm
No,
gonna-
it's against the law.
I'm going to
It's against
stop
the
you.
law.
I'm going to
Okay.
stop you at this time.
Okay, I will
We
put in a
have
legal complaint then.
Okay,
That's
fair
fine.
enough. Thank you. We do have a second public portion of the meeting that will be at the end, and you can address any issues that concern you at that time that are non-agenda related. Thank you. If there's no one else, we're going to close the first public portion at 7:41 p.m. and move on with our agenda.
Excuse me, did we check the email before we close?
Fair point. Steve, can you let us know if there's any questions or comments that came in agenda related?
I checked it about 2 minutes ago, just refreshed it, and there aren't any in there now.
All right. In that case, we're going to close it. Damaris, I'm going to modify it to 7:42 p.m. Okay, moving on with the agenda. Old business, action to be taken. Mr. Kim, would you care to move us through the items on that section, please?
Sure, I'd be happy to. I motion that we approve under old business action to be taken, education reports, section A, number 1, the NJ CUSAC district performance review for 2021 to 2022.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Kim. Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Any questions or comments?
I had one, this is going to be discussion detailed by our assistant superintendent at the next meeting.
I'm sorry, Mr. Katz, could you clarify?
'Cause I had a question on, I looked at that, and the scores were very good, all 100%. It's terrific, but there was one that was an 89. I wonder if there's some detail or comment on that.
Okay, so at the next meeting, Dr. Culls will present our test scores as once, we just received them to district, so she has to have some time to put them together. The thing you're voting on now, when it's related to test scores, that's the only area that we have no control over. The county actually gives us the scores to input into that spreadsheet. So there's no wiggle room in there. So that's what our scores actually are.
May I share something from the IMP committee meeting? I was talking about this with Dr. Cullis, and everything that's under our control, under our school preparation, basically had scored 100. The remaining score was based on test scores. And of course, this past year was unusual with testing scores as well. She'll go into more detail, I'm sure, but it basically was that it was dependent on the test student scores in the district.
Yeah, that's what I figured. So, yeah, I look forward to getting some detail on that when she does the presentation. But overall, the results were terrific.
I believe I also saw that those were 18, 19 test scores, correct?
Yes.
That's what they use as the baseline or whatever
Yeah.
they use for kind of barometer for this report.
Right, and we did also do, for this one, I just remember we had COVID, so we didn't do them in 1920. We didn't do it in 2021, but in the fall of this year, 2021, we did something called Fresh Start, and she's going to present that information.
Yeah, I'd like to take this opportunity to commend Dr. Forte, Ms. Gorowski, Dr. Cullis, the rest of the administration, as well as the teachers and the staff. Just sitting in the meetings, listening, there's a tremendous amount of work that has to be prepared for these sort of audits, these QSAC audits, and they do an amazing job, and they're organized and just continue to make progress every week. So kudos to everyone involved.
Thank you, Mr. Kim, and thank you for volunteering to be on the committee. I used those air quotes when I said volunteering, but thank you.
Yeah, thank you, James, for being on that committee, and thank you to all the staff. Obviously, during a challenging year, keeping those wheels moving is no small task. Anyone else? Okay. Roll call, please.
Mr. Capello,
Yes.
Mr. Cass,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Lure,
Yes.
Mr. Kim,
Yes.
Mrs. Gould.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Under new business action to be taken, personnel. Mr. Anderson, would you care to move us through this, please?
Sure. If there are no objections, I'd like to move under new business, items A, personnel, items 1 and 2. Pay attention to the addition on the addendum of item 1D as in David.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Thank you, Mr. Lure. Comments, questions?
We're excited that we have the mock trial starting up again. And I was on the phone with Einhorn today, and they will be participating in the mock trial program as well as they used to in the past.
So am I missing that? So who's actually taken that over, Steve?
On the second page, letter B, Allison
Oh.
Minion, she's the new mock trial advisor.
Thank you. I missed it up there. Got it. Thanks. Okay. Anything else? All right. Roll call, please.
Mr. Capello,
Yes.
Mr. Cass,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Lure,
Yes.
Mr. Kim,
Yes.
Mrs. Gould.
Yes.
All right. Moving on to instruction and programming. Mrs. Gould, would you move us through that one, please?
Sure. I move to approve the following resolution under instruction and programming. Item 1, workshops with expenses for Dr. Cullis to attend 3 virtual workshops in the NJPSA Gifted and Talented Education Certificate Program.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Gould. Thank you, Mr. Kim. Everybody's okay? All right. Roll call, please.
Mr. Capello,
Yes.
Mr. Cass,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Lure,
Yes.
Mr. Kim,
Yes.
Mrs. Gould.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to finance. Mr. Kim, will you move us through this?
I'd be happy to. I motion that we approve Section C, Finance Number 1, the 2020 to 2021 Comprehensive Annual Financial Audit Report with no recommendations from the auditor and the auditor's management report on administrative findings.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Kim. Thank you, Mr. Cass. I just want to repeat, I know it's been said before, I'll say it again. A thank you to everyone involved in this, which is pretty much everyone in the district. Obviously, our administrative staff moves mountains to satisfy this report and keep the finances of the district organized and moving. And the fact that we have no recommendations again is a fantastic outcome. So thank you for that. Everybody good? Okay. Roll call, please.
Mr. Capello,
Yes.
Mr. Cass,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Lure,
Yes.
Mr. Kim,
Yes.
Mrs. Gould.
Yes.
Okay, we are on to old business, no action to be taken. Mr. Luer, would you care to take us through these items for our next meeting?
At our next meeting, I, or someone much like me, will be moving the following items. We will be we will be voting on the board reports for treasurer school monies and board secretary. These are from October 2021. The education reports, student enrollment and the health office, also from October of 2021. And the minutes for the work session and executive session meeting of October 11th and the regular session and executive session 1 and 2 meetings of October 25th.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to new business, no action to be taken. Mr. Anderson, I'm going to throw it back to you for personnel, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. At our next meeting, myself or someone will move under personnel. We've got 2 items on the agenda so far. One for Mr. Corman to cash in 5 vacation days in accordance with the collective bargaining agreement, as well as a Riverview Annex nurse to go through a school nurse practicum. And I did communicate with Dr. Forte just a little bit about that school nurse curriculum or practicum. Code calls, and Dr. Forte, keep me honest here, code calls for at least one of our school nurses in the district to be certified. We have 3 currently, and Kelly would be our 4th, assuming she goes through the program. So.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to instruction and program. Ms. Gould, would you care to move us through those items for our next meeting?
Sure. At the next meeting, I or someone else will move items 1 through 4 for approval. That would be workshops with expenses. They're on unlisted now, but that might change. Field trip requests, the revised mentor plan for quality induction of novice and new teachers, and approving student teachers for the 21-22 school year.
Thank you very much. Moving to policy revisions, Mr. Kim, would you care to move us through that item?
Sure. During our next meeting, we would be voting on policy number P0167, public participation in board meetings, for the second reading and adoption.
Thank you. I'm going to stick with you, Mr. Kim. Sorry about that. If you could take us through the finance items for the next meeting.
Sure, no problem. We will also be voting on, in section D, finance, the regular checks in number 1. Number 2 and 3 cover donations that will be made to the, or have been made to the district, as well as number 4, the purchase of 4 laptop computers for the security.
Great, thank you very much.
I had a question before we vote on it at the next meeting on number 4, and we all are big advocates of security at the schools. I wonder if we had any details on these particular type of laptops, what they may contain, unless it's confidential, compared to the regular laptops we use in our schools.
I'll give you as much as I can in public, and then you can ask the same question in executive since it deals with security. So these will allow for better monitoring of the cameras for our Class 3 officers.
That's great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Moving to operations, Mr. Cass, would you move us through those items for the next meeting?
Yeah, at the next meeting, I'm going to ask the board to approve our school bus emergency evacuation drill reports. Lakeview had a drill on October 20th in the stone lot across from Lakeview. At Riverview, the drill was on October 27th, 8:30 a.m. And at Valley View, it was October 13th at 7:15 a.m.
Okay, thank you very much. That brings us to good of the cause. There were committee reports distributed during the week. Anyone have any comments or any additional items related to committees?
I would just note, sorry, Mr. Cass, go ahead, please. Just under personnel, I unfortunately couldn't attend the last personnel committee meeting, but I did want to make a general kind of statement about some of the stuff we've been talking about the last few meetings in regards to no surprise personnel struggles that we have as far as staff members. Just like I think generally you see out in the community and outside of education, the administration continues to struggle with trying to ensure that we have enough staff members. There's a shortage of substitutes throughout, not just locally, but throughout the state and beyond. That creates a lot of issues, right? So I just want to commend Dr. Forte, Dr. Cullis for being creative with trying to find full-time subs or other solutions to fill and ensure we have appropriate coverage for our students, and really also let the public know that this will probably be an ongoing problem as we continue to move forward, and hopefully it continues to get better. But we have invested additional funds to hire, if it's appropriate. We've hired full-time subs in the buildings, and continue to find ways to fill gaps. But I know even personally, one of my kids has kind of a long-term substitute scenario going on. So I know that the administration continues to struggle with personnel. So, and this is beyond, I know we've talked for years about bus drivers and things like that, but this is really beyond that and just really down to our staff members and a lot of the teachers and aides.
Okay. Mr. Gass?
Thank you. I want to thank the Equity Committee for all the work they're doing, and the reports are very comprehensive with a lot of detail. And the last report I looked through, and a couple of things came to my attention that I think I need some clarification so I can, fully understand it. And I don't know if anybody else has questions, but maybe at some point Dr. Cullis could give us a presentation on the working committee, where we are, and some of these pending initiatives that are being talked about, to give the public as well as all the board members some context. And I might not get, she's not here tonight. I know Katie probably has answers to some of these. I don't want to take up a lot of time, but there's a couple of things that again came to my attention here when I went through the report. We had the slides there from the teachers going to an off-site course. You have two slides that were part of the report: identity markers for adults and discussion points. So the one I had questions about was creating your me map, and then they had bullet points down there, and I didn't know if this was going to be segmented to age appropriate. Obviously, if you do something with a first or second grader, it'd be a little bit different than you're doing something with a seventh or an eighth grader, because you got words in here like identifiers. I don't know, somebody in elementary school, their younger kids would know what an identifier even means. And you have words like vulnerable and empowered. So I just had a question on the approach of that. The other thing was, in tandem with those slides, is nothing is chosen forced on the students, student-led and voluntary exercise, which is good. I think when I substituted at Valley View, I saw a lot of things with kids working as teams and everything. And I think it's a terrific life lesson when they work on projects together. So it's student-led and voluntary exercise. My question would be, where does that fit into the daily schedule? What in the schedule is going to be massaged, shifted around so they have time for this. And it's voluntary, so you can't anticipate that you'd have 100% participation in that subcommittee. So that was a question: where does it fit into the schedule after school? And the last thing that came up was community outreach, which is always a good idea. Dates are pending. Resurrection of a parent academy for student success, which is really good. I mean, you got to get the parents are involved with their kids' education. The kids always do better. I learned that the hard way, by the way, when I was in school. But anyhow, one of the committee members talked about healthy relationships / body autonomy / consent. So I wonder if this kind of piggybacks on the stranger danger that we taught the kids over the years. The couple other things that I noticed and highlighted was items the committee was discussing / modification for what's left of this year. Item B was to develop an anti-racist statement for the district stating the intent to determine where systemic racism and biases exist and how they will address it. I've been here for a long time and heard a lot of bullying cases and meanie kid cases and things with teachers and administrators that have gone over the years. And I would think that if we had systemic racism going on and biases in the school, it would have been discussed at the board level. I'm not aware of any. I don't know if Dr. Forte has had any come across his desk, but it infers, my perception, it infers that we're overlooking something. And I think it's problematic if we are, but I just don't think that happens, that we have systemic racism in our schools and if biases exist. If it's going to be looked into, that's fine, but I'm concerned about the way that is worded. The other thing which we've discussed well before this committee was formed was the equal employment opportunity, and we're going to use statistical methods available to identify possible areas of improvement related to staff diversity and gender, race, and ethnicity, and there'll be a final report compiled with recommendations for the future. Again, we've had many a discussion with our demographics that come into interviewed with jobs and our current makeup, and it's the education industry is an industry where it's top heavy with women, with female teachers. And I was discussing this with my wife here, and I still remember all my elementary school teachers and my high school teachers, and when I was in elementary school, it was Mr. Griffith, my 5th grade teacher. Everybody else was a woman. So, people don't come into the interviews. And the other thing I point out there is we have legal requirements on posting jobs too, where they're posted, how they're posted. I believe there's time frames too, right, Dr. Florida? You have to give everybody an opportunity to apply for that job. So I think it's good. It's going to be looked into, but I think we have to frame it to, that we have been doing our due diligence on being fair in our hiring process. And that's about it. I'd like to see, we talked about all the different months highlighting our diversity in the country, as well as, the county and Denville. And I think it would be helpful, again, if either a separate presentation, if we could have a PowerPoint presentation where Dr. Cullis could go over all the different months we have and the contents, what is being done for those, our different nationalities and races. I always enjoy the ones with the food. It's very, because we have, in my family, that's a big deal when my sister-in-law comes in from Spain and does her Spanish cooking when she's here. So her world-famous paella. So those are some of the things that, that caught my attention there. So anybody else that wants to talk about it or wait to Dr. Cullis, but I think you're making a lot of progress with the committee, which is a great thing, but I just think that we got to be careful with how we explain things to the public and how we approach all these areas.
So Don, thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm going to seize on the last thing you said. I think it'd be a great idea to have a presentation of all that we do during the year in terms of the months and how we recognize nationalities and ethnicities. Steve, is there anything you'd like to get back on right away?
Sure, I can help with some of that. So for the first thing you asked was age appropriate, like are these things age appropriate? Dr. Cullis took this very seriously. All staff members were trained so that they can, so it can be age appropriate, and some of those things that you brought up, like identifiers, could be something like, I like to play soccer, like something like that. It doesn't have to be anything in particular. Depending on the age of the student, they might say, I like blue, so it doesn't really have anything to do with that. Number two, the second question you answered, I'm not sure of that, so we have to ask Dr. Cullis. The third thing you talked about was the anti-racist statement, and also the hiring pool and diversity. I think it's a great time for those two things to come up in the strategic planning when we have 100 members or so of the community to be involved. And if the community feels that an anti-racist statement is important, then that might be part of our strategic plan. Like, you know how we have our mission statement, maybe there's two things. So we have the mission statement and then an anti-racist statement. Maybe it doesn't even need to be called that. Maybe it's just something else, like an acceptance statement. In the committee, one thing I said was, no matter what we call it, no matter what we do in this committee, there's no one in the district that doesn't want all people, no matter their race, gender, appearance, orientation, anything like that, not to be comfortable in our school. So we want to welcome all people, no matter who they are. That could be the simple anti-racist statement. And maybe we don't even want to call it that, because you're right, that might have a negative connotation to it. So maybe it's more of an acceptance statement, like the opposite of that. But I think this is a perfect thing to talk about with that big group. That might come out as one of our 5 or 6 goals that come out of the strategic plan. And the hiring pool in New Jersey is for certificated staff members, especially, is not very diverse. It's the students going into teacher preparation programs are predominantly white females. So we want to hire the best people no matter what race, anything. We want the best people all the time. The one thing we have been trying to do is increase the pool of applicants. Like, find the applicants that might be just as good as the ones we were getting before from other areas. Like, one of the things we did was we started partnering with Hunter College in New York City. We haven't gotten anybody from there yet, but we partner with them and we work on job fairs. We're also a member of the CJ Pride, which is an organization that is really devoted to trying to help increase the diversity of the applicant pool. So whether or not we can be successful actually hiring some of these applicants, I'm not sure, but at least we can get to see them. Before, we weren't even getting to see them. So that's one of the things we're doing. I think both of those two last things we just talked about would be great for the strategic plan.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's the way to do it. And also on the mission statement, I think you get a lot of buy-in if it's inclusive in general, rather than just keying in on one particular item.
Yeah, that's my feeling on it too. And I did bring it up with the committee a few times. It seemed like it was well received by everybody. It was a simple statement about accepting, the one thing I said was there's not one person that wants anybody, no matter who they are, to be uncomfortable. They want everybody to be comfortable. Whether or not, we're successful at that, right? We're going to always keep trying, and that's the goal.
Thanks, Steve. Katie, I know you wanted to say something.
No problem. No, thank you, Don. I think I belatedly tried to note all your points. I may have missed the second one. But for the MEMAPs, Dr. Forte covered that the teachers actually went through this process first, and they are going to have some session where the community and parents can do this as well. So I don't want to try not to give away too much, because we want the parents to experience it before the kids experience it. But I want to say that, yeah, it's going to be obvious, age appropriate. I don't know about schedule, but it will be part, I'm sure, their social emotional learning. This has been part of their, this was actually from, the MEMAP was from the Equity Institute at Teachers College. And this was a really great way to approach this. It's a great way to bring it up about celebrating both what you have in common and what's different without focusing on any one category, just like you said. Instead of saying, oh, well, where's your family from, or something like that, or even family trees. I actually recently had a friend who has, all her kids are adopted, and she's like, oh, a family tree project. I hate this project, because there could be kids who don't know their background or have traumatic backgrounds, and a lot of things like that to many of us might just seem normal. Oh yeah, my kids did that, or my kid did that already. But to other families, it might be different. So the MEMAP was a way to approach it where they could share about, who's in their family, what does their family look like, are they adopted? They can share anything that they identify as, and it's not coded word. I'm not sure what the MEMAP project looks like, but they're not coding any words to gear it to any one category or topic. So that's what we discussed. And the reason why the anti-racist statement was in the whole minutes was originally that was one of our goals. And this committee came about obviously after some of the events of last summer. And you saw a lot of companies and communities and different organizations putting out anti-racist statements after George Floyd. And it was something that we worked on over time, but we never, then it got to the point where if we publish something, it doesn't seem like it's, several months later, a year later. So we discussed it because that was one of our original goals, and Dr. Cullis and the rest of us are talking about how actions are more important than language. And there may be something like this in the future, some kind of pledge or something. All the right motives are there. That was one original goal that did eventually kind of fall not as a priority of putting out a specific statement just on that. The employment, I think Dr. Forte handles that. At the last meeting, it was on the schedule. We didn't actually get into it. We ran out of time, and Dr. Forte wasn't able to stay for the whole meeting. So my reason for bringing that up, the goals about diversifying employment was, I think it's a great goal. I think the district is doing great steps in working towards this. I just know there's a lot of people on our committee who have connections or who have ideas, and I think this would be a great conversation, this committee's conversation between the community and the district. So I thought it'd be a great chance for a conversation in case they had any additional ideas or just discussion about not just how do we, have our teaching population, all the staff represent the staff, the kids in school more, the demographics and the population, but also, is it a safe and welcoming place for teachers of color or teachers who might be different? So I thought that was a good discussion just to have between both the district and the community to give back. And then about the months, and this is kind of a newer initiative with the Hispanic Heritage Month and Black History Month. And we will keep sharing about what happens. Dr. Cullis shares at every meeting, and I could talk to her about some kind of presentation. But that's still in development as we just started working on that more. I missed one of your questions?
Which one?
I don't know, between the MEMAP and the statement.
The scheduling part, that was the one I wasn't sure about either.
Which I think, right?
Yeah, it was on the scheduling that, obviously, every time you add something new to the class day, there's only so many hours. Teachers can only teach so many hours, as I learned on the negotiations committee a long time ago. So, I was just wondering how it was going to fit into the schedule. And then one of these things talked about the voluntary aspect for the students, and you talked about starting with the parents. So, I was just curious as you roll this out, that I'm sure other people would have the same question. This would be an after-school project for the students, or would be, squeezed into the daily schedule somewhere along the line. I mean, we don't have the answers right now. Like, it's just still a work in progress. But I think I got some good information tonight that I know you can only put so much into a report. But, I think we're heading in the right direction. And the strategic plan's a great idea because we did the other strategic plan, our last one 5 years ago. We had a real good turnout at the sessions there, and you get a lot of buy-in by the community when you have a lot of people providing input. And that strategic plan also lets people know what we've been doing, what we've already done. A lot of people, asked about things that we already had in place, but they just didn't know about it.
All right, thank you, everyone. I think we're up to board highlights.
Congratulations to the Valley View Green Team. I'll explain a little bit more. Come to the November 22nd meeting for Dr. Cullis will present on the district test scores, and to let the public know we're planning on a new strategic plan with public input in the fall of 2022, and there will be details to follow.
Sounds good to me. Anyone have any other suggestions? Everybody okay with that? All right.
Actually, what about the audit, the financial audit maybe, or was that in the last one?
I did put it in the last one because we had the presentation.
Sure, okay.
Yeah, okay. All right, any other good of the cause items anyone would like to discuss?
I've got just a couple of quick items. Number one, congratulations to the Valley View boys and girls soccer teams for winning their county championships. And actually, while I was at the girls' championship, I saw Dr. Forte, who was at both of them, and he mentioned to me a really good point that we have not, I believe, had to cancel any extracurricular, particularly sports, obviously, more commonly for bus situations, where that was not the situation for other towns. I know my daughter plays on the Valley View girls' soccer team, and they had several games that were canceled because the other districts could not provide busing to get to Valley View. So kudos to our transportation department, who even on the girls' championship game that was supposed to be on a Saturday, it got rained out, so it got moved to Monday, and they were able to accommodate getting a bus to bring the kids to Chester for that game. So great job by the transportation department during some challenging times. And then I was able to attend the Lakeview Veterans Day ceremony last week. And I have to say, it's always a great ceremony, always a great opportunity for the community to come and engage with our students. But I was truly impressed with the ability of the building administration to adapt this year. They moved the entire program outdoors for safety. They were able to still engage all the students. They brought all the students out and did a drive-by for the veterans. They still provided breakfast for the veterans. So just a great job by everybody involved, Mr. K, Mrs. Serendopoli, Mr. Scala, and I'm sure there was many, many more that I'm missing that were involved, the PTA, with providing, with continuing on with that. And I know Riverview has theirs upcoming this week. So I'm glad to see that the district continues to do these ceremonies and engages the students.
That's great, thanks, Mike. Anyone else? Okay, I have one item before we open up for public comment again. Though the election results are not final, it does look like we're going to have 2 new board members in January. Dr. Forte has reached out to them to start the onboarding process. I would just encourage, as we all know, being a new board member is daunting, and especially this period leading up to when you start, there's a lot of information and a lot of, I guess trepidation would be a good word. So if you have some time and would like to reach out to them, make a connection and just, grab a coffee or whatever, I would encourage it. It'd be maybe a nice way to welcome them and get acquainted. So I have their information, their contact information. Dr. Forte does as well. So. All right, with that, if there's nothing else, I'd like to thank the public for their patience. We're going to open up for our second public comment section of the evening. This is any item germane to the district, and it is now 8:18 p.m. Same rules apply. Please approach and announce your name and address.
Just real quick with the board members, if you want their address or their phone number and email, I put a document in the Board of Education agenda for packet for 2021. 21-22, it says new BOE members. If you want that, it's there.
Thank you.
Donna Marie Szynski, 64 Pier Place. I'm actually really glad that was brought up, Mr. Case. Thank you for the inclusion and anti-racism and discrimination. It's something that I hold close to my heart as well. I was bringing up the constant request for volunteers. Now, this has been an issue, of course, in years prior as well. I personally can't volunteer for lunches because of food allergies. So unfortunately, that's something I always wanted to do. I did volunteer for tomorrow, and I was very excited that I was able to go, but I was going to be discriminated against because of my vaccination status. I have a religious exemption, okay? That's our constitutional right as an American citizen, okay? Discrimination should not be accepted. It doesn't matter what form it's coming in, okay? That's my deeply held religious beliefs that you guys are choosing to discriminate against. I got COVID, so I have natural immunity. Problem is, you guys only counted for 3 months, which, again, very big misrepresentation. I did speak about the chickenpox analogy before I got COVID, which was pretty ironic. But Dr. Peter McCullough, a cardiologist, he actively treats COVID patients, says you can't get COVID twice. You also have superior immunity, no need for the gene therapy. He also said children are more likely to die from the shot than COVID. That's right, die from the shot. I will share the Florida COVID Summit talks to anyone interested. Email me, dmski1973@gmail.com, and I'll be more than happy to give those things to you. Not allowing parents into the school due to vaccination status violates constitutional rights. It's segregation. I think that's against everything that CEL teaches, right? And it's definitely not following real science. I can also share 106 research studies Dr. Malone, creator of mRNA technology, shared on natural immunity. I believe the longest study was 19 months. And that was because the study was only 19 months long. We would like to join forces with you guys. We want to be friends with you, okay? I know some of you guys outside of here, okay? And it's very discouraging. We should be a unified team for our children, okay? We shouldn't be this divided force, and the discrimination should not be acceptable. Whether it be religious reasons for myself, natural immunity for myself, I fall into 2 categories, or simply people don't want to be part of an experimental gene therapy. None of this is actually approved. They're all still under emergency use. The commodity isn't even in this country. Not honoring a religious exemption is against the law. Can you please start representing all families? For the record, I am tired of teachers discussing their opinions of gene therapy. I'm putting Denville Township School medical staff on notice. If you fail to share the risk of injury and death to parents and children, you are violating the Hippocratic Oath. You could also be found liable, since the vaccine manufacturers are exempt for liability. The best anti-racist statement ever said, judge a person by the content of their character, not their skin color, religion, vaccine status.
Thank you. Yeah, if you if you want to.
Just quickly about the volunteers. It's a pretty big process trying to get all this going. We got the testing done for the staff last Wednesday. This Wednesday we'll open it up to the volunteers. Volunteers are unvaccinated, fall under Executive Order 253 as well. So anybody who's unvaccinated who wants to be volunteer, but there are other things you have to go through. There's a criminal background check, there's some training, and if you do all the things that you have to do for those 2 ports, you can then you can either get testing on your own or you can do it with us, and that will be on Wednesdays. The information will be coming out on Tuesday.
Ms. Szynski,
tomorrow.
this isn't
No,
about.
no,
This
it-
isn't
it
going to be a
should
back
not
and.
be
This isn't
that
going to be a
way.
back and forth.
This is not fair.
Thank you. This
Okay?
isn't going to be a back and
It's
forth.
got to be non-discriminatory
Dr.
as per the Morris
Forte answered
County
your question.
Superintendent's
Please give
office.
someone else a chance to speak. Thank you.
Michelle Zimmerman, 34 Shawnee Trail. My statement might be over 3-minute time limit, but I hope what I have to say you feel is important, and you will let me finish without interruption. This past fall, my daughter kept insisting on wearing a mask while she was outside running around playing in the RVSL soccer league. When I asked her why she is wearing a mask, she says, I feel uncomfortable letting people see my face. As a mother of a teenage daughter, I was crushed, angry, and wanted to cry. We are trying to raise our children to be strong, confident, independent. These masks are making some children develop self-esteem issues, and it saddens me that this Board of Ed supports this. My child was called a racist by a fellow classmate because she did not want to talk to him. When I asked her why she didn't want to talk to him, she said he's a troublemaker and also goes around the school trying to get the other kids to say the N-word. He thought it was funny. I blew it off at first as an uneducated child and/or parent. Then I was introduced to this group of intelligent, incredible parents, Mama and Papa Bears, who have opened my eyes. I am shocked to see what is being taught in our schools across this country. Over the summer and into the fall, there has been issues with a group of about 20 boys harassing other kids in town and sometimes in the school. After posting it on social media to bring it to the parents' attention, I have received private messages, text messages from parents saying that this has happened to their child, telling me that they're going to have to talk with their child to make sure they were not involved, and also encouraging me to go to the police department. After I talked to my daughter in regards to this, wait, I lost my place. Sorry. I was being told to report it to the police department. After talking to my daughter, she wanted to speak to a police officer in regards to it. We went downtown to discuss the matter with an officer and make a statement. The officer then told her if she has a teacher, counselor, nurse, any adult of the school that she is comfortable with, to report it to them when it happens at the school. While walking to my car from the police station, my child turned to me and said, "The school doesn't do anything about it." I'm sharing our story to make you aware of what is going on in our schools and in our town with some kids in the Denville School District. We do not want any apologies. We just want to bring this to the attention of the school board. After hearing my child say that she does not feel the school handles the situation, is not comfortable talking to someone at the school, we do not give the school permission to discuss any of these issues with my child. If another issue should happen again, we will go directly to the police department to report it, since that is where my child is comfortable discussing the matter. If you have any questions, please reach out to me directly and not my child. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for coming in tonight. I do encourage you to speak directly with the building administrator of your child's school. You can do that directly at any time, either teacher or building administrator. Anyone else? Okay, Steve, do we have anything from online?
No, we do not.
Okay, then at this time, I'm going to close the second public portion at 8:27 p.m. We do have need for an executive session. I will note that we're not going to be voting after this executive session. Mr. Luer, would you move us into executive, please?
I would like to move to convene an executive session in accordance with Section 8 of the Open Public Meetings Act. The purpose of this closed session will be to discuss
Personnel, security, and legal matters.
personnel, security, and legal issues. Minutes of this session will be made available to the public when the need for confidentiality no longer exists.
Second?
Thank you, Mr. Luer. Thank you, Mr. Anderson. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, we are in executive session at 8:28